All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Glitch Cube. We're a gaming podcast, and each week we take a deeper look into the art of video games. I'm Christian.
And I'm Chris.
And today we are going over some Halloween spooky classics, just in time for the holidays.
Ooh.
So we actually have a little bit of a list for you guys today of our top 10, I would say, favorite horror games, or ones that really stand out the most to us. So why don't we just jump right into it? Jump right into horror, I guess, right? So for horror games, I guess that's a weird way of doing it. Get jump scared into horror. Let's do that.
That's a little better.
Yeah, there we go. I'm not editing any of this. I'm leaving all that crap in. Okay, so, horror games, everyone should kind of be familiar with the concept of it. If you just know the horror genre in general, it's just, what can we, a maker do to just either freak you out, scare you, get your heart rate going, mess with you psychologically, or bring up some really awkward things from your past.
Ooh.
That's the worst. All right, so I'm going to jump right into this list, and starting out with number 1 on our list is Layers of Fear. Yeah, so this game was really awesome. It's fairly new. It's about 2016, so it's one of the more recent games. But it is very psychological in its delivery. If you guys haven't heard of it, please check this one out, because I find this one to be a gem personally. So you play as a painter who's living in a Victorian house, and you've lost your mind. You kind of need to figure out what's going on, and I just love the way that they set up their chapters and how they show progression of the overall story itself, because every time a new chapter starts, you start in front of this painting, since you are a painter, and the painting slowly changes to reveal the true story. And the whole time you're traveling through this weird little mansion, it's creepy as hell, a bunch of voices everywhere, trying to solve some puzzles, and it just gets messed up. It just gets, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. Play this one with the lights off if you really want to get freaked out. And if you are an artist like me, I really resonated with this one, because it just was, you draw your emotions and you let things kind of take over a little bit. So it's very, very good. All right.
I haven't played it myself personally. I have it. I played maybe I played a little bit of it, but I've seen videos and I watch people stream it, and I love how the rooms kind of change, right? It gives me a very Silent Hill kind of vibe when your whole setting and everything gets more kind of disturbing the more you look at it. And I didn't realize about the whole you start each chapter at a painting, that's kind of really
the painting evolves and changes with every puzzle that you solve, which is taking off another layer of what the story actually is. And I think this is one of those games, a lot of games are great to watch as full playthroughs and see someone else do it. But I feel with some horror games, you watch them, you just don't get that initial that fear that you would if you're playing it. This one actually holds true if you're just watching it. So if you don't have time, just watch a playthrough of this, a full play, and you'll get creeped out, because they did such a good job with the story. All right, and now going on to number 2 on our list, which is, I believe I'm pronouncing it right, Kuon?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm not really familiar with this one, so why don't you let us know?
So Kuon was released originally on the PS2. Physical copies of it are going for over $300-$400. It's ridiculous.
That's the true horror.
Exactly. It really is. It had really, when it first came out, it got bad reviews, and it had a really low print run, which is probably why it's so expensive.
Makes sense.
But over time, it's kind of become a cult classic. It's made from From Software, which brought us Dark Souls and all that good stuff.
Oh, okay.
And it's basically, the setting is in Japan. So it's got that kind of Japanese horror vibe to it, right? Mm-hmm. And there's 2 characters that you kind of play through. Each one has a different style. You can attack enemies. It's not advised, because you attack pretty slowly. It's more so you're just in this haunted I don't know really what you call those buildings, like the Japanese buildings, but it's like the shrine kind of area.
Okay.
And
So
there's
like
just
a haunted
these,
temple.
yeah, and there's quite a few different like enemies. I know with horror games a lot of times there's not a big variety of things that come after you, but in this game there is, and some of them are actually pretty creepy. Like the graphics in this game are actually pretty good. They're not. I feel like Silent Hill 2 is like for the PlayStation 2 like the best graphically horror game on there. This game is pretty close to it. It has that same kind of look to it and has the same vibes actually.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the artwork. It's a bunch of contorted bodies and like Japanese folklore, which is already intense because they just take like the human psyche and what is going on in the deepest recesses of your brain and bring it forward. So
yeah, and it's the thing I liked about it is like the menus, the text, everything. It just feels so like traditional for like the setting, and it's just, I don't know. It really feels like you're actually playing like a scary movie from over there. And this was actually one of the few horror games I actually was lucky enough to at one time own.
Nice.
And it freaked me out, mostly because I was not really big on horror games when I was younger. So this was like my first like kind of jump into it. But I found it interesting because this game focuses on stealth a lot. So obviously all horror games have that, but in this game, like if you even run, like you're going to get jumped. It's something you actually have to really play like kind of slowly and carefully because enemies do get alerted to you, and then yeah, you can hit them, but I mean you just got to run.
Right.
But it's definitely a cool game, and I think everyone should check it out if they get the chance.
Cool. All right, so moving on to number 3 on our list, we have Inside.
Ooh.
Now, this game I thought was great. I mean, I loved Limbo, personally.
Oh, yeah.
But this one just builds on Limbo, not just by adding colors to it, but by adding an actual, like, really deep story behind it all, too. So it's a 2D side-scrolling puzzle platformer that, like, if you played Limbo, then you're familiar with the style of it. It's very dark, there's a lot of atmosphere, I would say, in this game. Like everything about it, every still shot you can take from it just has so much where you're just wondering what the hell is actually going on. And you play as this like little boy who is kind of trying to escape. You get the feeling that you're trying to escape something, but you don't know what you're actually trying to escape from. And then eventually you make your way into this facility, and the story starts kind of unfolding in front of you where everyone around you is kind of like brainless zombies, but not, I wouldn't say zombies because in the typical sense of it, they're just mindless drones that are being controlled by what seem to be like these robot and scientist like overlords that are just everywhere. So you make your way solving these puzzles by escaping from the various dogs and guards that are trying to get you. And you use the drones to your advantage to try and like get through the facility and find out what's actually going on. Now, the kicker at the end, and I'm not going to really spoil it, is that all hell breaks loose. It becomes this crazy madhouse where you're actually going to the left the entire time for a lot of it, actually, which is really interesting. So the whole time with traditional 2D side scrollers, you are continuously moving to the right, always moving forward, and then you start breaking away from that. And it just, they did something really interesting psychologically there with just general platformers by changing things up like that. But it just, the ending is so weird that if I even like bring up a little bit of it, it's going to kind of spoil it. So I really recommend checking this one out for that ending. And it's not a long playthrough, so stick through it. And it's just it's a joy to play through. So
I'll have to look out for that one because I really enjoyed Limbo when I played it back in the day.
Yeah, Limbo is great, but this one is just like more. This is
better.
It's what everyone asked for. Limbo kind of had a story. This one actually has a story unfolding in front of you, which is really cool. And I like how they do that with like the silent protagonist, and like there is no dialogue. It's just, but you know exactly what's going on. Yeah, so it was a really cool touch. All right, so number 4 on our list of amazing horror games is Haunting Ground.
Every list basically has to have this game. It's, to me, I played it again recently. It holds up, honestly. If you're a fan of any kind of horror game and you can play a PlayStation 2 game in any way possible, this game needs to be checked out. It came from the same people that did the Clock Tower series, which is a series of games that started on the Super Nintendo and then went on, and always had it where you were a girl getting chased by some kind of enemy in a house, a mansion, wherever. And Clock Tower 3 failed out here, and then this was going to be Clock Tower 4. But seeing as how, why would you make a game for a franchise that's dead, they changed the name and they added a new mechanic by having a dog as a partner.
Smart.
And what's interesting about this is the dog, there's a hidden like trust meter over time in the game. And at first the dog won't really listen to your commands, right? Because you can have him like attack enemies to where he stalls them and you can run away.
Oh, cool.
But the thing is, if you keep telling him to do that and he keeps getting hit, he won't listen to you at all.
Ah.
But if you treat him right, take care of him, like he gets to the point where he can really bite enemies and like hold them for a while, and he basically becomes like a second player because he's so like he's trusting you a lot. The themes in this game are pretty dark as well. There's definitely gore in there. There's rape. A lot of like there's a unwanted pregnancy talk. There's a lot of like really disturbing themes in this game. So I mean, if you get triggered by this kind of stuff, it might be a little difficult. But it's definitely a game that, well, at least one of the few that actually kind of disturbed me. It's, yeah, getting chased by some of these creatures or people, it's freaky.
Right.
And I love it because it felt so innovative, especially coming from like the Clock Tower games, which were just your typical getting chased. And yeah, I love this game.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely one I do want to check out now. I've never got a chance to play it, but the Clock Tower games were, I mean, at least enjoyable up until the third one. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to the next one in our list, we have Outlast.
Oh boy.
So Outlast, I think, is a really fun play on the kind of found footage games, or I mean, found footage genre in general. So you play an investigative journalist who goes to a psychiatric hospital to kind of figure out what actually happened there. And it just kind of becomes this weird puzzle where things are really not as they originally seemed right away. Like, as soon as you get there, you're like, what the hell is going on? And it's just ghosts and demons and everything that you could really want, but all through the best way you can see is through your camera using the night vision, because everything is so dark. But then you have the added mechanic of having a battery, and you need to pick up batteries consistently throughout the game in order for you to actually see anything to get away from these crazy beasts. So it's a pretty straightforward game. It's really fun though, really exciting. A lot of jump scares, a lot of high tension moments where the people are walking right in front of you and they can't see you because you're sitting in darkness, but you can't see them either. So you just hear them shuffling by and you just kind of have to wait it out and hope that they went far enough away for you to pop out of your hiding place. So it's a really well done as far as that kind of horror aspect goes. But this one is, like I said, pretty straightforward. It's nothing too crazy, but it's one of those that really gets your heart rate going. And I found it super creepy while playing it.
Yeah, I find anything with that kind of like recorded footage or off the cam, like, it's cheesy, but it freaks me out at times, you know? And I know Outlast, like, to me, out of more modern horror games, I definitely put it higher up there. It kind of gave me that same fear that like Alien Isolation gave me, where you're always having to kind of hide, you know it's out there. And I really enjoyed it. I really need to get in and play the other games in the series, because I've only played a little bit of the first, but I enjoyed what I played.
All right. So moving on to number 6 on our list of horror, we have World of Horror.
Oh, the horror.
Oh, so much horror. It's everywhere. Okay, this one is bizarre, I think is the best way to put it. I can't think of a better word for it, honestly. I don't know. How would you describe this game? Because it's one of those, the visuals are what get me completely.
It's an indie game, so we're going to put that out there first. If you know who Junji Ito is, he does a lot of like horror mangas and stuff like that. They're always known to be really disturbing and very weird.
Yeah.
This game basically looks like that. Like that, when I first saw this game, I'm like, did he make that? Like it looks just like it. There's, I think, 4 different stories that you can play through. Each one is a little bit harder. With the first 3 are kind of built out for you, the story wise, but the 4th one is more like a choose your own adventure, and you can die a lot in this game, and then you have to start the story. It's basically like you play through, you try to win, and then you go into the next story. It's really disturbing. There's a lot of weird themes in it, ranging from basically anything you can think of. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, just do yourself a favor, go on Google, type a World of Horror, and just start scrolling through the images. And if any of those images grab you, check this game out, because just looking through the image feed will definitely give you some nightmares, that's for sure. This stuff is intense and a lot to look at, and it just makes you go, what the hell's going on? It's like, wait, what is that? Is that a centipede person? Why is that person dressed like a clown and now washing somebody? Yeah. So it's
washing somebody.
like, it's just really, really demented, but artwork is really great. And like I said, it does mirror a manga very well. So it's really interesting.
And it's also on Game Pass. So if anybody out there has it, you can play it on there.
Awesome. All right. So moving on to number 7, and I don't think any horror list would be complete without Resident Evil. Yeah. So, everyone's familiar with Resident Evil. Action, horror games, zombies, run, gun, shoot, all that. Every single one of these games is getting a remake now, too, apparently. So, but
thankfully.
Yeah. Well, personally, I am more akin to, like, my favorite Resident Evil game was Resident Evil 2 on the original PlayStation. And I feel like that one still, like, haunts me to this day. Specifically, one particular scene. I know we didn't say we were going to do spoilers, but I really need to go over this scene. And if anyone's played Resident Evil 2, like the original one, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. When you're in the sewers and you just keep walking past this one little area, because so it had fixed camera controls for all the people who are, 13 years old and don't know what that is. It's, you can't control your camera anymore. So everything just kind of clicks into the different scenes, and it had tank controls, which is horrible. And that was so hard to control, which I think just added to the horror of you trying to run away, but you have to stop to turn around. So as you're running back and forth between this area, you keep passing this one puddle consistently and nothing really happens. So eventually you just kind of ignore this frame, and it's just like a cool little segue to the next areas, right? Well, wrong. At one point, when you're just walking past, a giant, I would say like 60-foot long alligator jumps out at you from the sewer, and then you have to eventually, then you start this next boss scene where you're fighting a giant like alligator crocodile thing. But I think what got to me was the fact that you became familiar with this frame. Like, you became so comfortable walking past it continuously, and then all of a sudden that safety was just taken away from you. It was just ripped from you because freaking alligator. You're fighting zombies. You don't expect a giant alligator crocodile in the sewers to come out at you like that. So that one really got to me, and to this day, when I think Resident Evil, that scene comes up in my head.
I wonder how it looks in the remake, if it's in it. I haven't seen that part yet.
I don't know. That's a good point.
Definitely, I feel with the Resident Evil series, the scariest thing were the tank controls.
Oh my god, it looks horrible in the
growing up. I could not. It made me really turned off from the games because it's just, I hate it. Like as a collector of PlayStation 1 games, all the horror games have those controls for the most part, and a lot of them are good, and I'll suffer through it. But back in the day, I remember playing Resident Evil and then 2, and I didn't beat them. I played them quite a bit, but then I just kind of got sidetracked by other games.
They're also really hard, so.
They are. I think the first Resident Evil I really played through was Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
I feel like many other people, it's the same thing.
Yeah. But
I love that game, not just from the innovation it brought to video games in general, but it's just... It felt more action-y, which I liked. And then I tried playing like the remake of 3, which was cool. I just felt that it really felt a lot shorter than the original. And as much as I want to see remakes of all the old Resident Evils, I don't know. I feel like 4 has that charm that doesn't really need to be remade, because if you play it today, it doesn't feel like it's aged, really.
Well, I wonder if they will, because it follows the kind of new mechanics that they've put in place now for these.
I'm pretty
remakes.
sure they will. They'll do something to it. I'm
like a remaster
kind of excited for the next title, The Village or whatever, the Resident Evil 8. It looks cool.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. I haven't checked it out yet.
I still need to play 7. I know that's on Game Pass too. I played it at a friend's house in VR. For like an hour, and oh my god, horror games in VR is just...
Yeah, no.
It's gnarly, especially with your headphones on, have like a fan blowing at you, so you get that like cool like shiver here and there. Like,
yeah,
it's another world. It's cool, but oh my god, like it's scary.
Yeah. All right, moving on to number 8 in our list, we have a cute, adorable, terrifying little title called Little Nightmares.
Little.
It's so little. Ooh. So this one is a very interesting title. It's another one of those, it's a side-scrolling puzzler, but the character models are what really like freaks me out. So you play as this little tiny character. You basically are the size of a borrower, and you have this like adorable yellow rain jacket, and it's basically set up so that you can see your character at all times because it can be a pretty dark game. But the enemies that you encounter are just so morphed and just grotesque and wrinkly and just no. Like when you look at them, you just go, no, I'm not, don't touch me. Especially the janitor in the game, the first enemy that you really encounter is this guy who's like really squat, short, everything, no neck, just wrinkle folds covering his face. But for some reason, his arms are like 30 feet long.
Oh my god.
And he is just like, when you hide under a table, you just see these lanky arms just reaching for you and trying to get at you. And just, they're like, the fingers are twitching and it just, yeah. This is one title that I haven't fully played through, and I definitely want to finish it up. It's just, it got creepy. It got hard to play because it was so freaking creepy. And I know there's a lot of really like cute mechanics in there too, because of the character is adorable. Everything's kind of miniaturized. There's these little like spirit sprites that kind of help you out throughout the game, and they kind of remind me of like Pyramid Head / little tiny mushroom people. So they're really adorable, and you can like give them hugs and stuff, which while you're playing this game at any given time, you kind of feel like I need a hug right now because I feel uncomfortable.
It's a nice inclusion.
Yeah, so it's just good. It's a nice little touch that they have there. But definitely a fun title if you need something a little bit of a break from the action horrors, from everything else, and you just want kind of a little bit more slower paced story, I would say, and a little bit more of like a escape, runaway kind of horror game. This is definitely one to check out.
Yeah, it's been on my radar since it first came out, because I remember seeing it and I was like, oh, this looks cute. I really want to play it. And then it's just a title that's always been pushed away. Like maybe I'll play it this week just because it's spooky week, but yeah, it looks cute.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun one. All right, moving on to number 9 on our wonderful horror is Silent Hill. Another classic in the horror genres. Silent Hill is a lot. They've done some movie renditions of them as well, but well, I wouldn't really recommend watching them.
I mean, they're better than the Resident Evil movies. I'll give it that
That's
much.
true. That's true. Silent Hill, the first movie, has probably... It does have a scene that really made me, like, go, what the fuck? Like...
Yeah.
Where, I don't know.
It was weird.
Have you seen that one where they bring out Pyramid Head and then he's holding up to the lady and then he just rips all her skin off in one go?
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember thinking it was ridiculous.
Yeah. I was like, how is that even possible? But at the same time, oh my God. I want to see that again.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I want to see him do it to everybody.
Right? Why doesn't he just do that all the time? Because that would be an instant win. But yeah, no, that movie was definitely a trip. But these games, I think what really gets me with the Silent Hill games is the fact that all of the villains are based on some sort of like deep-seated, like fucked up desire.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just warped. It's warped beyond belief that it just... It's another one that's kind of a lot to take up, but all the enemies, like they take up a different aspect of the human psyche, you know, like whether it's lust or greed or whatever it may be, but like they're in there and they are warped beyond belief.
Yeah, I feel like when you talk to like horror fans, there's like the two people that, you know, there's the Resident Evil fans who want more actiony, more, you know, more violence, and then you have Silent Hill where it's more psychological and more survival, I guess.
Right.
I remember playing the original Silent Hill and I thought it was cool, but I think I fell in love with the series when I played 2. It's just knowing that everything is based off of like some part of like what you were saying, like their desires or thoughts. It's so creative. Like it that's pure horror, you know. And I've played quite a few of them. I haven't really played any of the more modern ones. I think I stopped playing them after 4 just because I never really heard people talk about like Downpour or Origins, stuff like that. And I know there's one that's more of like an action RPG, kind of like Diablo.
Oh,
I was reading about that the other day.
I haven't checked that out.
But I don't know. I thought they were always kind of creative. And I know a lot of people dislike 4, but I actually kind of enjoyed it because I thought it was a different take. And I don't know. I hope one day they reboot the series because I know the HD collection of 2 and 3 was badly done. It'd be awesome if they created a remake how like the Resident Evil's getting it. But Konami is kind of a crap company at this point. They push so many good IPs away, so I don't know. Hopefully one day. But
yeah, I think this definitely deserves it. I mean, especially since we are just getting the Resident Evil remakes, and that's becoming new and fresh again in people's mind. And like you said, if some people don't want that full run and gun adventure, they want something a little bit more survival-y. And I mean, it's one thing to kill zombies; it's another thing to kill a personal thought in your head personified as a monster. So yeah. I think that, I mean, for me, that speaks a little bit stronger. All right, so now we're moving on to the last game we have on our list here, the final horror game, Dead Space. Now, Dead Space for me, I did a lot of research. This came out whenever I started doing a lot more research on games before buying them and kind of looking into it a little bit more. And I fell in love with this title from the beginning. I love 2001 Space Odyssey. And it just really like spoke to that. It took that and made it into like a grotesque like horror game, which is, I think, a fantastic way of doing it. And they played around with the sound design a lot, which I know a lot of horror games, they have good like creepy sound effects added into them. but this one made it more, they took it as more of a cinematic approach, where as you're walking by, you might just see a shadow kind of move in the corner, right? And it's not going to affect you or do anything, but it's something you would see in a movie where like you can see the thing lurking behind you, but it like disappears as soon as you get up to it, right? And those little tiny aspects of when you never really know when you're going to get attacked or what's actually going to jump out at you was really well done, in my opinion.
Anytime you're on like a deserted spaceship or, you know, in space by yourself, it's a scary thought, you know, ranging from shows to movies that have the same kind of plot. I remember this game coming out right when I graduated high school or like close to it. So my mind was like kind of occupied by life stuff.
Right.
And this was kind of one of the few games I played during that time. And I remember just slowly falling in love with it because I didn't think I would like it. You know, I was like, oh, this is going to be like your typical, you know, 360 kind of action game. Nothing crazy. But when I played through it, I was like, wow, this is really well done. Like the scares are pretty good and the action was cool. It was very fluid. It was a joy to play. And I'm still need to play through the sequel. I'll skip the third one, but
yeah.
I'm looking forward to jumping back into the series at some point.
I think speaking more further, like they did something that I haven't actually seen in games, and this is what kind of really got my attention. And I can't remember which one it was in the first or second, but there's a point where you go into zero gravity, where there's like breaks in the ship, so everything's kind of messed up. There's no atmosphere, and throughout the game, you can hear like your footsteps clanking as you walk around. You hear different like sparks and like sounds over the intercoms and things like that. But when you get into the zero gravity mode, you just hear your breathing in your helmet.
Oh.
Yeah, because that's real. Like you wouldn't hear anything around you because you're in a vacuum of space at that point. So, and like you'll be running around and you can actually jump and move in a full 360 degree like area, right? Like you can move anywhere because you're floating in space. But that also means that things can come at you from any direction too. So first of all, you don't hear anything, and then things can just jump at you whenever, like from anywhere. So it just added to that whole like, shit, like I'm alone right now. Like it really played up the idea of you're by yourself. Like you have no one. You need to get out. And I just think it was really clever. It was really smartly done. And
That's
then,
cool.
And then they have dead babies, like dead creepy spider babies, which are just horrible.
Everyone loves those.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice touch. All right, so those are the top 10 games that we added to our list, but there are many more horror games that we wanted to include. But first, before we go into some of our honorable mentions and things like that, I just wanted to ask you, Chris, like, what do you prefer in a horror game? Like, when you look at horror games, what are you looking for? What draws your attention? Because our list is it's everywhere. It's a little everywhere. Yeah. But what's your go-to?
I think my taste has evolved in time. I used to be all about action, like Resident Evil kind of stuff. Nowadays, I'm more open to the being chased and hiding.
Okay.
I don't know. I hated it. I hated any game that did that. And then I think Haunting Ground really changed that for me. Because I'm a person that likes to sit and look at my setting and be like immersed in the fear, right?
Right.
And then now it's like, okay, like this is actually scary. Like when I look to a game to scare me, I look at like Silent Hill, and I think to me like that, the idea behind it, everything with it, that to me, that's what makes a great horror game. Right. You know, like Resident Evil's awesome too, but anything that's similar to Silent Hill or Clock Tower, to me, that's what I like. What about you?
For me, I mean, I've been gravitating more and more. I mean, at first, whenever I first got introduced to the horror genre games, action was really what I was looking for. The Resident Evil games, I loved them because like you felt like you actually had some sort of control over it. But now the kind of horror games I'm really gravitating to are more like Layers of Fear, where it's purely psychological. You have no control, and you're just along for the ride, and you just need to figure crap out. You hope you can get out. You're hoping for that happy ending because that's exactly what we all want in life, but that's just not the case. It's just not possible. It's not real. So those are the kind of like games, not just games, but even movies or other media too. Whenever I'm looking at horror, I'm looking for those. I'm looking for the ones that really make you think and kind of just fuck with you a little bit, honestly. And that's really what I look for now. Like I'm not. Whenever I pick up an action horror game now, I know I'm just gonna have fun with it. I'm not going into it with the idea of I'm gonna get freaked out right now, and I need someone else next to me, at least my cats, to not leave the couch while I'm up here.
A cuddle buddy,
right? It's like, Diego, don't you move. You stay right there. Yeah. All right. So for some other people, if those games on our list weren't enough for you guys, we do have a couple more. We're going to just go through them a little quicker than the other ones, just to kind of get them out there and give you guys a little bit more variety. And we're also going to go over some multiplayer horror games too, so if you do have a buddy that you want to play with, and you have them hop in with you so that you're not getting scared shitless by yourself. So the first one for me for honorable mention, at least, would be probably BioShock. BioShock is definitely one of those games that the story is amazing. Just from the moment you turn the game on, and just the setting of you swimming in the ocean, you're watching your plane sink, and the only thing in front of you is this little tiny island with like just a big ass door, and that's your only salvation. But everything about it is so brooding from the get-go, and it's just really, really fun playthrough. Definitely one of those games to check out. I would say BioShock 1 and 2 are probably the best ones as far as like the horror goes.
Oh, yeah.
After that, it becomes purely more action-oriented. That's for sure. What's an honorable mention for you? Which one do you like?
Before I jump into that, I will follow up on the BioShock thing.
Oh, yeah.
If you haven't played Prey, the new one, it's amazing. Yeah. Like, for one of my top 5 game of the year for 2017, Prey is definitely up there.
I forgot about that one. Yeah,
it's literally like playing BioShock but in space, and the creatures and the fear in it, it's so good. Like, I really enjoy my time with that. The decisions you can make
in that game too are really fun. Yeah,
it's definitely like a masterpiece in my opinion. Like, it's good. There's bugs in it, but it's still a great game.
Yeah, no.
But jumping on to an honorable mention, I would probably there's so many.
Yeah.
I think I like a lot of multi-genre kind of games, especially with horror.
Right.
So for me, I love like horror RPGs, like Koudelka or the Shadow Heart series is pretty good.
Yeah.
They're not scary, but it's just a disturbing setting. Another one that's also an RPG would be Sweet Home. It was never released out here, but you can easily find translated ROMs out there. If you're a person that wants it physically, people do make homebrew, like physical releases of it too, but they're kind of expensive.
Yeah.
It was a game based off of a Japanese horror movie where a bunch of people are going into a haunted mansion to try and get some art left over, and while they're there, just all hell breaks loose. But the game's cool because for an NES game, you can have multiple parties. I think you have like 6 people, and then you can split them any way you want. Each character has a special ability that they can use that's needed to clear certain areas. So you're almost always having to switch between people. The one thing that did turn me off is I felt like the battles were kind of difficult at times. But the premise behind it and the ingenuity for an NES game to really mix both of those, I feel it was inspiration for a lot of modern horror games, and there's definitely a few scenes in there that are pretty gruesome for the time. Like when I played it, I was not expecting to see some scenes in there that I did.
Right. All right. So moving on to if you want to share the horror with your buddy, if you want to, kind of feel that fear together, get your heart rates kind of syncing up a little bit, what multiplayer horror games would you recommend?
I think the two that stand out the most to me would be either Dead by Daylight or Phasmophobia. Dead by Daylight is a 4v1. You can play with your friends if you're a survivor. If you want to play as a killer, you can go hunting for different people. And each killer has a different gimmick. One can set traps, one can teleport to them. And it's got a couple licenses from actual horror movies, so you can play as some of your favorite killers there. The game's a lot of fun. I definitely have, I think, over 400 or 500 hours into it.
Jeez.
I got really addicted at one point with it, and it's a lot of fun. I feel that it's a lot of fun with friends just because you can mess with the killer better.
Well, and you guys are kind of creating the horror together, which is kind of fun, actually. So
yeah, there's been times I actually jumped from it.
Yeah, they give you the tools, but then you and your buddies actually make it scary.
Yeah.
Which is a nice touch.
And then Phasmophobia, I think it's been out, but it just got a big update, and it's been kind of a big game on Twitch and stuff like that right now. And you are paranormal, ghost hunters, right? So, and there's a progression system. So you're leveling up and you're doing gigs, basically. You're taking on these jobs, and in the beginning you don't have much equipment, right? You have your camera and your flashlight. Nothing really big. You can bring up, I think, a team of 4 as well, and you start going into these houses and mansions, and you're just trying to find the ghost. And you actually can talk to the ghost, and they'll speak back to you. And it's freaky because you can die. I mean, if you die, you just get sent back. The job's over and you get sent back.
Right.
But you basically do these jobs, level up, get money, and you can buy better equipment to handle the more dangerous spirits and ghosts and demons. It's actually pretty fun, and I was really surprised by it because I thought it was just another horror game that gets hyped up for a week and then gets dumped. But there's a lot of, I don't know, it's cool. I see a good future for it if they really build up on it, because it's different, it's freaky. You actually feel like you're in a spooky place. The graphics, well, they're not the best, but it's still kind of freaky.
Nice. All right, so if you guys liked our little list here, I hope you did, at least. And if you have any other horror games that we missed or ones that you really enjoyed, shout out us on the Discord. Let us know, or tell us in the comments below, right? Leave some comments, rate and review us, please, and thank you. Every time you do, it really helps us out, helps us get out there to a much wider audience. And share this with some friends. That'd be cool, too. So I think that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you for listening. Once again, my name's Christian.
And I'm Chris.
And thank you for listening.
Bye.
Bye. Cool.